All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Kabbalah Cafe. First of all, a very happy Mother's Day to all. That is appropriate to wish happy, right? To all the moms, to all of us that have moms, which I'm sure is everybody, right? So happy Mother's Day. That's literally how we got here, right? It would be hard to get here without a mom. And definitely want to wish happy Mother's Day. And indeed, this day should be a day of joy and celebration and good cheer. So today, the topic is the Kabbalah of Israel. We're going to explore a few themes that the Hasidic masters and the mystics talk about vis-a-vis Israel. We're going to connect it to what's going on right now, current events, and we're going to connect it to our text, which is spiritual surrender. That is the objective. Ariel, I spoke about you and your semester abroad. Welcome back. Do you know Spanish now? Oh, there you go. I don't. So either Gesundheit or well done. One of those.
He said very little.
Oh, he said he's a man of few words. What do you mean? Of course he said very little. Okay. I'm glad you got it. Sandrine, we need a second table here. I'm just saying. Huh?
Are we getting table service now?
I'm just giving questions.
Oh.
No.
This is interrogation. Let's give a round of applause for Anthony and Robin, who's not here right now. Anthony for the breakfast. Anthony always rock star. Now, I don't have breakfast in front of me, but I can tell these things. I can see these. I'm not eating while I teach, but I can tell that this is high level. All right, so today, Kabbalah of Israel. I want to begin with probably the most famous story that reflects the spirituality of Israel. The first story that really speaks about Israel in Torah. Well, that's not okay. The story I want to speak about is Yaakov and Jacob's ladder. So let's speak about that famous story, depicted in art all over the place, right? Jacob's ladder. So what happens
on our mechitza here?
On the mechitza.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Jacob's ladder.
Okay, which we'll talk about why that's on the mechitza, why that's in the synagogue. So let's talk about that in a second. But let's just lay out the story, make sure everyone's on the same page here. Yaakov, Avinu, Jacob, our forefather. He gets into a bit of a rift with his twin brother, as twins do, perhaps. And your twin, really? So how do we know that it's you? I'm just wondering, Paul. Is that your real name?
Like, one of you were in trouble.
How do we even know at this point?
All we know is one of them were in trouble.
You guys had that? Really?
My brother came to you.
I was kind of kidding, but now I'm even more intrigued. He just
said that before he got breakfast.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. All right. Wow. So much to unpack.
That's why I saw you taking breakfast twice.
There you go. All right. Here's the deal. So Yaakov is busting out of Dodge, i.e. his hometown. He's escaping to safety. He gets tired at night. He goes to sleep, as one does. He puts rocks either under his head or around his head. Pillows. What are you going to do? You have the local pebbles. Puts it around his head, and he has a dream. His dream is that there is a ladder that is Sulam Mutzav Arza. The ladder is resting on the ground. Verosha Magia Shemaim, on the top is reaching the heavens. He sees this ladder. And on the ladder, Vihine Malach Elakim Olim V'Yarden Bo. On the ladder, we have angels, divine angels, godly angels, going up, ascending the ladder, and descending the ladder. And we've talked many times, because we've explored this story before in depth. Deborah, good to see you. Welcome. And Fran from Vegas, Deborah from Florida. Good to see you guys. We've talked about, huh?
Could Vegas place a bet for us?
I'm sure there's an app for that, Jeff. If you don't know the app, I'm sure we can find people that know people that can hook you up with that. You don't need to go to Vegas. You don't need to go to Vegas at this point. That's so like 1984.
What happens in Vegas stays in
That's
Vegas.
Also true.
Back to the subject.
So here we go. Back to the subject. So the notion of the angels going up and down, we've discussed this before. Why would the angels first be going up and then going down? If angels are in heaven, it would seem that the first direction they would go is first down, then up, because they're starting in heaven. So why are they going up and down? They should be going down and up. It's not. It sounds almost like a technical question, but it's a conceptual question. The answer given, and this relates to tefillah. The answer given is that the angels that we're talking about are not the angels that are emanating from heaven, but the angels that emanate from earth. That's where they're going up first. What angels emanate from earth? The angels produced by our prayer, by the tefillah that we recite. Every tefillah, every prayer that we recite, creates angels and sends angels above that carry our prayers above to heaven. Those are the angels that are going up the ladder, and then you have angels coming down the ladder, bringing the blessing and bringing the deliverance that we've asked for, etc. And we get everything that we have asked for. That's the down one, bringing the blessing down. So the angels carry up the message. Matt from Kansas, welcome. Feel like we're running a talk show here, but good to see you. Good morning. So we have, hey Matt. So we have the angels going up and the angels coming down, and that's the prayer. The tefillah. Tefillah goes up, and the blessings, please God, come back down to us. But that's not what I want to focus on today. And also parenthetically, why would angels need a ladder? Angels need a ladder. Go ahead. What do you need a ladder for? It's like saying that Michael Jordan needed a little step ladder to slam, to dunk. No, he does not. Or like that new guy on San Antonio, I think it was on San Antonio. Whatever his name is, right? Wemby, that he would need to jump to dunk. He doesn't need to jump. He just drops it in, I think, maybe. He's that tall. So what's the point? The point is like this. Angels don't need ladders. However, we need ladders. Why? Because we need to, when we climb, we need to go step by step. And when we descend, it needs to be step by step. Otherwise, we're jumping without a parachute, or we're jumping without a trampoline. Trampoline. People jump with a trampoline. Yeah. If you're a high wire rack, trampoline. Yeah. Without no, I don't mean actually jumping on. I mean without a safety net. Safety net. We need safety nets. We need a sustainable climbing and sustainable descent. Our rutzo, our yearning for God, sustainable. If we have ideas, today I'm going to be super spiritual, but don't have an action plan about how to get there. If we don't have a ladder, then we're not going to get there. It's going to be an idea and a dream, but it's not actually going to deliver. And if we're trying to integrate something into our lives, trying to integrate a good commitment, but we don't have an action plan, then it's also not going to work. Look, if somebody wants you to invest in their business and they say, I have a great business idea. The idea is we're going to make lots of money. Will you invest? You're like, well, what's the idea? No, we're going to make lots of money. Are you ready to invest? Yeah, no, right? That's give me, what's your plan? Give me the ladder, build it out for me. What's step 1, step 2, step 3? Maybe we can work on it together, but give me something. What is your plan? So the ladder is key. The ladder is important. Back to Israel. So Jacob wakes up in the morning, and he becomes very, it says that he becomes afraid almost. He starts to fear. And what's the fear? He says that I slept in this place, and the place is holy, and I didn't know. And he felt like sleeping in a holy space was not appropriate. I mean, imagine, would somebody take like a sleeping bag and post up in front of the ark in the synagogue? You would never do that, right? I mean, unless it was like a camp trip and whatever. I mean, a lot of kids sleeping, but typically you would close off the holy spaces and try not to do it in a synagogue. But here he slept in this space, and he says, indeed, I didn't know that this was a holy place. He said, this is nothing but the house of God. That's what he says. In retrospect, the next morning, he says, I realize now that this is Beis Elokim, v'zeh Shara Shamayim, and this is the gate to heaven. And the mystics say the following. What the implication of that is, not just that he slept in the space of the temple, the Beis HaMikdash, which he did. He slept in the place that would ultimately become the Beit HaMikdash, the holy temple. And it's not just that he found the portal to heaven, the place where we, till this day, direct our prayers. We face east, right? We face, here in America, we face Mizrach when we pray.
We face Jerusalem.
Why? Zeh Sha'ar Shamayim. It's the gate to heaven, the portal to heaven.
In Israel, you don't always face east.
Correct. I went to South Africa for the first time.
Also.
And I asked my father-in-law, shortly after we were married, I'm like, where's Mizrach, which is east? He's like, why would you want to know that? I'm like, I don't know, to pray. He's like, we don't pray east.
Well, they
North. Yeah. Best in Hong Kong, where do you guys pray?
West.
Yeah. I mean, if you go east, you would eventually get there, but that's the long way around. So the point is that we direct our prayers to Yerushalayim, to Jerusalem, specifically toward, ideally, the Temple Mount, the Beit HaMikdash, the space where Yaakov Avinu, Jacob, our forefather, slept that night. And he recognized that this was the place where prayers go up and prayers get answered. Till this day, we pray facing that direction. And our sages tell us that there's not only a Jerusalem below, but there's a Jerusalem above. There are two spaces. There's the physical incarnation of Jerusalem and the spiritual Yerushalayim as well, Yerushalayim above. Two Yerushalayim, two Jerusalems, below and above. And the two are congruent, the two correspond to each other. Physical Jerusalem and spiritual Jerusalem.
I think there's a Jerusalem is written in the plural, Yerushalayim.
Interesting.
That's because that's one of the reasons why they say that it's written.
That's the two. Interesting.
I
didn't hear that written.
Is that different from any other part of creation?
I never heard of a spiritual Atlanta. I'm just saying, I haven't heard of it. It's specifically said regarding Jerusalem.
That's because you don't go to Toco Hills.
I don't know where I would need to go to find spiritual Atlanta, the heavenly Atlanta. There's a heavenly Yerushalayim, a heavenly Jerusalem. And the reason is because of what's said in the works of Kabbalah. And in the book of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, also elaborates on this at length. It's because Yerushalayim, Israel in general, but specifically Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, is the center of the earth. I don't mean the physical center, but I mean the spiritual center of the universe. And I need to say this. Every single time God promises Avraham Avinu, Abraham, our forefather, every time he promises him children, because as you know, he was childless until his old age, or until many decades into his life. And he didn't give birth to Yaakov, to Jacob. His wife didn't give birth to Jacob until he was, 99 or 100 years old. So for decades, God promises Avram, he says, I will give you children. Every single time he promises him children, in other words, the idea of a legacy, the idea that his movement is going to have continuity, every single time it's coupled with the promise of a land. He says, I will give you children and I will give you land. You will never find in Torah, and you can open it up. It's an open book. Open up the book of Genesis. Anytime God promises Avram a child, it's always coupled with the promise of a homeland. And the idea is that there is no Judaism without a land. I think this is something that Jews today, maybe not everyone recognizes. Maybe we sometimes forget. Maybe we've adopted the mentality, have Torah will travel, and maybe we don't need a homeland. And that's why sometimes it might seem like others want it more than we want it. And I think that is a disservice to Judaism. When you look at Torah, you quickly realize that Torah is part and parcel of Torah itself. The Jewish people is to have a space. Now, the question is, why is a space needed? Why is a land needed? Maybe if we have Torah, we have a way of living, we could do that anywhere. And indeed, we can do that anywhere. But why do we need, why is Israel so important? So again, today's topic is the Kabbalah of Israel, so we're going to explore this. So the book of Tanya, he quotes places in Kabbalah, sources in Kabbalah that talk about how Israel, just to circle back to what I said a moment ago, Israel is the center of the world, but more than the center, it's likened to the head of the world. What is the head? So if we look at the analogy of a head, this is a theme that comes up Rosh Hashanah time, because of course Rosh Hashanah, although it's the Jewish New Year's, Rosh Hashanah literally means, what's Rosh? Head of the year, which is a very bizarre phrase, at first glance. Happy New Year makes sense. Happy head year just sounds a little weird. So what's Rosh Hashanah? What does that even mean? So the mystics explain that Rosh Hashanah is not just the first day of the year, but it's the day that contains all of the energy for the subsequent 300 and whatever days of the year. I say whatever, I know 365, that's the solar calendar, 354 is the lunar calendar, unless you have a leap year, and then things get a little complicated. The point is that Rosh Hashanah contains the energy for the duration of the year, for the rest of the year. It's like the head. The head is not just the top of the body. It's not like, oh, what makes the head special? Because when you look at a person standing up, that's the top. That's not the only implication. The head is not just the beginning of the body or the top of the body. The head, right, of the human stature, the head contains the core vitality and energy of the person, consciousness. right? The nervous system, all of it is controlled by the head. The head is literally, we call it headquarters for a reason, right? Why is a company headquarters called headquarters? Isn't that weird? Why are we assigning a physical and an anatomical part to an office building? Oh, headquarters. What's up with headquarters, right? We call it headquarters because even in English, we recognize that the head is not just the top, but the head is central. Headquarters. From here, everything happens. This is the nervous system that controls the rest of the company. Headquarters. HQ. You guys with me? So when we say that Yerushalayim, Israel in general, Jerusalem in particular, when we say that it is the core at the center of the earth, we're really saying that it's like the head. It's the head of reality. Now, the question can be asked, why do you need a head? If God is everywhere, which we believe that God is everywhere, right? So why does there need to be a head? Why does there need to be a head? You can even ask the question on a more specific level. Think about it. I mentioned before, we referenced the Temple Mount, right? The Holy Temple of Jerusalem, the Beit HaMikdash, the Mishkan, right? Eva, you showed me a video of this shul in Mexico. Beautiful, gorgeous shul, right? You just showed me a few minutes ago. Portable, like a Mishkan. And they say that it's a synagogue, but when Mashiach comes, they're ready to transport it to Israel and rebuild it over there. Beautiful. In other words, why make Mashiach do all the hard work, right? We're gonna make it easy. We're gonna make it easy to be transported. It's a beautiful thing. But why was there a need for a Beis HaMikdash, for a temple? Why do you, if God is everywhere, if you can connect with God everywhere, then why do you need that? I'll ask another question. Why do you need a synagogue? If you can pray anywhere, one second. Wouldn't we all agree that God is everywhere? Sure. Wouldn't we all agree that you can pray and connect with God everywhere? Absolutely. So why do you need a synagogue?
It's better.
It's better.
Because we need to do it together.
Community.
Okay. All right. That's a good answer. I have another angle on it, but I like that answer. That is a good answer. So we need a space. Might as well make it big enough that everyone can gather.
And have a kiddush.
And yes.
Have a menu.
They need to walk to for Shabbat because you can't drive.
Right. So, but there's another reason, and there's another angle to this, and all of that is true. But there's another angle to this, and the angle to this is that even though God is everywhere, even though Hashem is in every city on earth and in every space, and leis asar panu mine, there is no space that is devoid of God's presence. It's quoting Kabbalah, like God is everywhere. Although that's true, human beings, we need representation. We need symbols. We need to feel, right? It's helpful for us to feel like this is a space. This is a holy space, a place that we walk into and we can say that this is okay. Now we're stepping into a holy space. And it's from those designated holy spaces that we can then derive the inspiration to reveal that holiness in all of the other spaces. If you never had those holy spaces, then there would never be a bar set to try to achieve. Does that make sense? I feel like I said that a little bit unclearly. Yeah.
What was the discourse used after the second temple was destroyed? And you had this diaspora global.
Right.
What did the rabbis say to people?
Probably Oive. So
a collection.
The discourse was along the lines of, we're not going to build, first of all, we're not going to build another temple until we have kind of a divine message to do so. And we are going to, on some level, pivot to create or to shift Judaism from a holy temple-centric system to a more, I would say, decentralized, with still having some centralization, i.e. synagogues and in communities, but decentralize it to a greater extent than it was before, which I think paved the way for just incredible growth and expansion. Globally, you now have synagogues literally around the world. It's funny because I spent last week, this past Tuesday, I was at Coca-Cola headquarters. There was
Headquarters.
headquarters. There you go. Right. Headquarters. There you go. And we had like a day of, it was the Atlanta Rabbinical Association had their get together, the shindig, over at Coca-Cola headquarters. So there I was, rubbing shoulders with Atlanta rabbis, and whatever. We were in Coca-Cola headquarters.
What they serve?
Why? Steve's. Yeah. I wasn't there for dinner. They had a dinner also. Why was I saying this? Hold on. What were we talking about right before this?
Headquarters.
No.
Decentralization.
Decentralization. Oh, okay. So all of the listen to this. So Coca-Cola. So there was a representative of the company that was speaking, and she talks about, it's unbelievable. Coca-Cola, they've got it down pat. They have a purpose statement. You've heard of a mission statement. Purpose statement. 6 words, 2 sentences. Refresh the world, make a difference. I'm like, there's probably millions of dollars spent to like crystallize, but it's so good. Refresh the world, make a difference. And then in the course of the conversation, the woman explained how everything they do goes back to that core purpose, right? The core purpose of refresh the world, make a difference. Now, many of the other rabbis, because I was the only Chabad rabbi in attendance, so many of the other rabbis came over to me and said, "Oh, because also this lady said that Coca-Cola strives to be the most, the greatest marketing unit, like the top marketing, best marketing." So a few of the folks come over to me. A few of the other rabbis are like, Coca-Cola and Chabad, you guys have the best.
He loved it.
Yeah, I'm like, but why do you say that? I'm like, yes. So,
You're keeping somebody alive with your signs in the hallway.
Yeah. We're definitely keeping people alive. We're spreading the parnasa around a little bit. So here's the deal. When it comes to the shift post Second Temple, it was definitely a shift away from a total central space and into more diversity. That diversity has led to, speaking very narrowly from a very current perspective, and let's say just focused on Chabad, there is Chabad literally in every part of the world. Wherever you go, there's Chabad and other synagogues and other Jews and kosher food and whatever. And all of that is a product, I think, of the temple's destruction. Not that that's a good thing, but that when the temple was around, there was one place where everyone went. There was a central location that everyone made a pilgrimage to. Whereas when the temple is no longer, so then people are creating their spaces, are fanning out. So that's a major pivot that happens.
Is that when Israel and Judah split?
No, that happened before.
Before that.
That happened before that. There was internal fractures beforehand.
But the other pivot was from sacrifices to prayer.
Correct. Right. Without a temple. Right. Thank you for mentioning that. Without a temple, there's no animal sacrifices, which was a mainstay of the temple, the original OG temple. And prayer takes the place of sacrifices.
So what completes the circle in terms of those that argue with the temple and the third temple?
So that belief is that ultimately, right, in the Messianic era, so there will be that kind of once the world has been kind of perfected, then once again there will be this central place where everyone will flock to, as it were. Now, I understand. I think I understand your question. Your question is, well, if we've kind of moved on from that, why would we go back to that model where everything's back in one place? I don't know that I have a good answer for that, but that is the belief that it is kind of coming back to that type of centralization. What I will say is that even in that place or in that space, the divine, for lack of a better term, divine awareness or divine enlightenment is actually everywhere. It's just that there will be a singular place. It's almost like, getting back to the analogy of the body, the head is the headquarters of consciousness, of the nervous system, right? The head is, without the head, the body, the person's not alive, right? The head is the most important thing. With that being said, would one say that the finger is not alive? The finger is also alive. There's life in the finger. There's life in the toe. There's life in the leg, right? There's life throughout the body. But the head is the headquarters. And so in a similar way, the mystics say that Jerusalem, right, Israel, Jerusalem is the nerve center, is the center, the spiritual nerve center of the world, and everywhere else is feeding off of that energy. So it's almost like the energy is pumping in. I'll tell you an anecdote. There was once first of all, by raise of hand, has anyone who has been to 770 Eastern Parkway, headquarters of Chabad? Okay, so several of you. Okay, those that have seen it, those that have been there. Am I correct in saying that it is not necessarily the most physically speaking, spectacular synagogue you've ever seen? Right? It's a little bit plain. Yeah, like a little bit, right? A little basic. Okay, great. So there's once a fellow. This was a prominent businessman who came to visit the Rebbe. This is back, decades ago, back in the day. And they had a meeting. And at the end of the meeting, he says, "Rabbi, something's bothering me a little bit. I feel like a little bit uncertain if I should ask the question or not." He's like, "I don't understand. Like, this is, you're such a powerful Jewish leader, and so important to world Jewry, and you're operating out of a very basic." And so the Rebbe responded to him. He says, "You have an office building?" He says, "Yeah." "You have a beautiful office?" "Yes." "Oh, by the way, when I went to Coca-Cola headquarters, they have one of the floors. They have the original founder,
Pemberton.
Woodruff. Oh, maybe
Woodruff. Robert Woodruff.
Woodruff. Yeah, Woodruff. The CEO. Yeah, he's the CEO, right? They have his office like preserved,
Like the Rebbe's.
oh. Lahavdil. Let's so Lahavdil in there. Let's create a little demarcation.
I'm sure Robert Woodruff's Cadillac is not sitting in his garage.
Well, they didn't have a garage, but they have his office, and the woman who was showing us around, she maintained that it's all original furniture, no replicas, all original, exactly the way he had it. Wasn't in that building on like the 10th floor, but it's a new building. Anyway, the point is that so the Rebbe asked this fellow, "So you have an office? You have an office?" He says, "What does you have a boiler room in the building?" "Yeah." He says, "What does a boiler room look like? Is there a couch in the boiler room?" "No." "Why would there be a couch in the boiler room?" He says, "Why is there?" "Because it's utilitarian. It's to generate the heat for the rest of the building." Rebbe said, "That's what this synagogue is also. This is generating the heat, the energy for the rest of the world. This is from where like campaigns come out, mitzvah campaigns to change the world. This is the boiler room of the globe. That's what this place is." But I think the message, aside from an anecdote about a specific synagogue, I think it's really about a larger anecdote about the idea of a headquarters. You need a place from where energy pumps out. The head, physically, that's the place from where energy flows to the rest of the body. You need also spiritually, you need a synagogue that is a space of inspiration from where you can bring it back into your home. Yes, could you be inspired alone at home? Sure. But it might be a little bit harder. It might be a little bit easier when you gather together, you gain inspiration, and then you can draw back from there. Again, God is everywhere. You can pray from anywhere. You can study Torah from anywhere. You can do mitzvah anywhere, yet 100%. But there's also value in this idea of a headquarters, of a space from whence or from where the energy emanates. That is Israel. And that's why our sages say, again, the mystics explain, that's why there's not only a terrestrial Jerusalem, but there's also a heavenly Jerusalem. There's a heavenly Yerushalayim, a supernal Jerusalem that is the spiritual counterpart to this physical experience, because a physical place is not a spiritual headquarters. It's the spiritual side of Jerusalem that infuses the physical Jerusalem, fuses with the physical Jerusalem to create this headquarters for the rest of the world. All to say that in Judaism, Israel and Jerusalem are of primary importance. Spiritually, pragmatically, it's been said that one of the reasons in ancient times why Israel was so important, and when you look historically, I wrote this up in the email before Shabbos, One of the reasons, one of the things that you notice historically is that every great civilization in that part of the world that rose and then fell, and then others rose, and right, that constant, a struggle for power. When you look at history, look at the maps. It's always around Israel, and it's always like vying for like who's got Israel, where's Israel under whose rule. Israel is such a key part of civilization for so many millennia. To this day, right? Israel is front and center of the news. Not exclusively. There are other things that are in the news that are front page. But Israel, I would say, one could wonder why a land the size of, they always say the size of New Jersey, right? Why that has such outsized, media attention and coverage. Why? Yeah, and part of the reason is because Israel, everyone knows, is the Holy Land. Whether you're Jewish or whether you have another faith, doesn't make a difference. There's something special about Israel. There's something special about Israel. You go to Israel, you feel a little bit holier. You feel a little bit elevated. Raise of hand, who's been to Israel? Right? Yeah. Okay. Did you feel a little special? Feel a little holy when you get off that plane? It's a little bit holy. It's a little bit special, right? There's something
when you come home, that feeling wanes over time.
Yeah. Oh, right. Which is fine. You gotta go back.
You have to go back.
You have to go back. There was once my wife's great grandfather was a very prominent Hasidic mentor, mashpia in Kfar Chabad in Israel. He was once leading a Farbrengen, and at the end of the Farbrengen, he said, everyone should take a resolution, a positive resolution. One of the people at the Farbrengen said, what's the point of taking a resolution? It lasts for a few weeks, and then you drop it anyway. He's like, what's the problem? We'll have another Farbrengen then. Right? So when the inspiration wanes, get another Farbrengen. Fran, did you want to jump in with a question? I think I saw your hand go up. If yes, unmute and jump in. No, Fran, not Frank. Fran. All right. Either way. Okay. If yes, you'll let me know. The point is, yeah.
After the first temple was destroyed, they built a second one. You didn't have to have a Mashiach to build the second one. Ergo, one.
Good.
Why did they build a second one? Question one. Number two, build it, they will come. Why don't we do another one outside of the political climate?
Sure.
I mean, they could have done that 100 years ago or whatever else, at some other point. Now it's a little difficult, but if we built a temple, build it and they will come.
Good questions. Both very good questions. Yeah. Question number one, there was a prophecy before the first temple was destroyed that it would be in ruins for 70 years, 70. And then after that, another temple would be rebuilt. And there was, at that point, there were prophets, like the famous prophets that we all know, Jeremiah, Isaiah, like the big names in scripture, right? The big prophets. So, and there was a consistent theme of 70 years and then rebuilding of the temple, and they were in communication. That was happening. After by the second temple, there was not that communication. It's kind of like when we know.
With who?
Right. That's part of it. Right. Who's going to be getting that message? I'm with you. Right. The prophecy ceased by the second temple era, and here we are. Now, our belief is that there will come Elijah the prophet will come and herald the Mashiach and sound the shofar, and we'll know, and that will be the time. So when it happens, like the Rebbe said, we will all know about it. It will be even in the front page of the New York Times. That's what the Rebbe said. It's even going to make the Times. Do you know that the Times, do they still print candle lighting times? Friday? They used to?
Somebody pays for that ad.
Oh, it's
not ad? The Times. Somebody pays for that ad to put the candle lighting time in.
Nice. You know what's funny? The year 2000, the New York Times did a millennium edition, and I think they were doing what's the news going to be in the year? Well, I don't know if they were in the year like 3000 or the year 2100 or something like in the future, and they had like all these like all the headlines were like futuristic, but they had candle lighting time. New York City.
Yeah, I see.
That was like
That was
still,
one
there's one
consistent-
consistent
that was
thing.
the one
No matter what
consistent thing.
changes, candle lighting time in New York City, January 1st is still going to be, I don't know what, 5/13 or something, somewhere around there. But to your question, and you asked very good questions. The other, so one answer, the simple answer is that there was clear communication about what, when, where that should happen. We don't have that. We don't have yet that communication. Second of all, why not build it and they will come? So that's been the subject of a lot of debate, whether or not it can be jump started that way, or you got to wait for the spiritual shift to happen. Right. So do you jump start it through the physical action, or do you wait for the spiritual transformation and then the physical stuff follows? The consensus of the sages throughout the ages is that we got to wait for the physical stuff. Some of the religious Zionists, like, they believed that going to Israel, establishing the state, would be the trigger. That would be the trigger to bring Mashiach. Many rabbis and spiritual leaders felt that that's not. You can't shoehorn it. You can't force. You can't back into it like that. It's gotta happen when the world is ready. The idea of Mashiach is a utopian world, spiritual utopian world, a world of. Maimonides says in his book of Jewish law, what is Mashiach? An era where there's no war, there's no famine, people get along with each other, an age of enlightenment, spirituality, everyone knows God, knows the Creator, and with that will also come a temple, all that stuff, holy temple. So it's coupled with I'm going to say a new reality, the world that we all want to live in, a world in which people are not killing each other. Like, who doesn't want that? Everyone wants that, right? We all want a world in which there's no pain, no suffering, no hunger. I think we can all get behind that. I mean, literally, like that's the world that everyone wants. And that's the Jewish idea of Mashiach. It's not just for Jews; it's for everybody. And that comes with the temple. But to build that first, aside from the pragmatic issue, because there's other structures currently on that space, and I don't think
300 years ago.
I don't right.
I thought the third temple is just going to fall from the sky and land right on it.
There's also that theory.
Show them who's boss.
Right, okay, but it's not so clear about exactly how it's going to transpire. All right, be that as it may, the idea here is that there is a central headquarters, even though God is everywhere is spiritual, etc. It's still important to have that type of centrality in order to inspire. I'll give you another example. I know I'm kind of harping on this, but I think it's important to understand that even though spirituality is everywhere, it's still valid and important to have a headquarters. It's like that in time. Every day is holy. We still have a day on the calendar known as Yom Kippur. Why? Why do you need Yom Kippur? Every day is holy. But you can't pray to God every day? Why do you need one day of the year as a fast day, as a day of prayer and atonement? You can't ask for forgiveness every day of the calendar. You can't. Of course you can. But it's helpful to have one day in which that is the focus. It's helpful to have a space in a community where the focus is prayer and Torah study. Can you do that at home? Yes. Would you do that at home if there was no such thing as a synagogue, as a Beit Midrash, as a Beit Knesset? Would you do that at home if there was no model of that? Maybe the answer would be no. Because if there's no template, then what am I replicating in my home? If there's a synagogue, right? If there's a space where spiritual activity is done, then I can say, I want my home to be a miniature version of that. I want my home to also be a space of prayer, to be a space of study, etc. If I don't have that, right? If I don't have that in the community, then it's hard to find that model. You know who else had this idea to eradicate any notion of the model? There was a man named Korach. Remember Korach from the Bible? Korach said to Moses and Aaron, why do you guys have this position of leadership? Everyone's holy. We don't need any leaders. Now, cynically, some commentators explain that he only said that because he wanted to be the leader, right? So what if someone else is the leader and you want to be the leader, what's the best way to become the leader? Tell everybody, oh, leadership is bad, and get rid of the leadership. And in that vacuum, it's like, well, I kind of led the anti-leadership movement. I guess I'll be the leader of the anti-leadership movement. And the fact, I mean, isn't that like
Castro?
Isn't that the story of any revolution? It was always about tearing down, right, those bad people in charge. Oh, look at that. I guess I'll be in charge. That's always been, isn't that like Animal Farm, even the book Animal Farm? All animals are created equal, but some are created more equal than others. Isn't that like the whole idea of like even communism, socialism, like everyone's a comrade except for those in charge who are now the brand new leaders. So it's human beings are human beings. The point of this is that Korach, that's all the cynical way of understanding it. If you take him at his word, what he wanted to say is that you don't need any leadership. Everyone is holy. The problem with that is, although he's right, everyone is holy. Everyone is a child of God, 100%. There's nothing factually incorrect about that statement. But the problem is, and here's the major problem. The problem is, if you don't have someone that is kind of in that space, in that position, someone who is a model spiritual citizen, as it were, it's kind of hard. If you don't have a role model, it's kind of hard to grow, because where are you growing, right? What's your aspiration? What are you shooting for? You have like a role model, you have a tzaddik, you have a rebbe, you have somebody who's like, wow, that person is really spiritual. I want to grow, not to become like him or her, but I want to grow because I see what it looks like when somebody is living their life dedicated to a cause 100%. Okay, that's inspiring. But if I don't have any role model inspiration, then why am I climbing? Where am I climbing to? So you need a Yom Kippur, you need a Kohen Gadol, you need a Rebbe, you need a role model, you need a Jerusalem, and you need a temple, and you need a synagogue. These are things, even though everyone's holy, everywhere is holy, everything is holy, sure, but it's good to have these types of headquarter things. Now, with that being said, there is one more piece to this that I want to share with you this morning, and it's going to connect with what we learned inside. And that is that the Hebrew word for the land of Israel, the land, is called Eretz, right? Israel is called Eretz Yisrael. Yisrael is Israel. What's Eretz? The little translation of Eretz is land. But if you look at the Hebrew etymology, so Eretz is comprised of three letters, Aleph, Resh, and Tzadik, Eretz, okay? Eretz. And comprised of three letters. The letters Resh and Tzadik, the second and third letters of the word Eretz, spell the word Rutz. What does the word Rutz mean?
Run.
To run. Excellent. To run. Rutz is also related to the word Ratzah or Ratzon, which means will or want. Want, will, desire. So listen to this. Our sages say the following. Why is it called, rhetorically the question is asked, so Jewish. Why is it called Eretz Yisrael? Right? Why Eretz Yisrael? Now, the simple answer is because the land of Israel. Like, what else would you call it? But why? What is the deeper meaning of the fact that it's called Eretz Yisrael? It's a land, Sheratza, that wants to do the will of its creator. In other words, it's a land that is so spiritual that it's almost like you can't help. The land itself has that energy. Has that energy. The land itself has that spiritual consciousness. The land itself is imbued with a type of spiritual intensity, but more than intensity, restlessness. It wants to strive higher. It's a land. You step into the land and you feel what the land feels. The land itself wants something greater. The land wants something higher. And that's why, first of all, people are very intense in Israel. You ever notice that? You ever notice that? Is the drivers and the whole thing is very intense. It's always volatile. Volatile situation in the Middle East. Part of that volatility is the spiritual volatility. It's spiritually volatile. And what I mean is not people fighting against each other, but it's like spirituality is on fire. The soul is on fire. There's a restlessness. There's a sense of the status quo is not good enough. We need more, right? That's why everything is amped up in Israel, in the Holy Land. Everything is amped up to like the volume is 100%. Like everything is so loud, amplified. The energy is ratcheted up. It's a land that has high intensity, spiritual intensity. Does that make sense? This obviously can lead to a spiritual burnout, but in a positive way, this leads to spiritual breakthroughs. So today, we're going to pass this around for the next few minutes. We're going to read some of the text, the mystical text inside, and we'll see how he weaves this into our narrative, getting back to the debate between Joseph and his brothers, as well as a few of the tribes that actually did not want to settle into Israel. Okay, you'll see what I mean in a second. Let's pass this around.
Do you realize that at the heart of Jerusalem is USA?
Jerusalem. Oh, interesting.
The very heart of Jerusalem is USA.
Well, that's in English. But yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Interesting. Okay, let me pull this up. Spiritual surrender.
Oh, isn't there a mirror image of the entire earth in heaven, so that whatever we do affects heaven, whatever heaven affects.
Oh, so you might be asking why specifically we're talking about Jerusalem.
There's also mirror images of each
everything, right? Everything has a spiritual dimension to it, 100%. But there's something special about that.
This class is getting rowdy.
Okay, here we go. We're on page 68. Okay, I'm going to pull this up online for our online crew, our awesome online crew. So hang tight. Let me just make sure I have the right page. Yes, here we go. It's the last line on 68. Yosef and the tribes. Sounds like a band. All right, here we go. Yosef and the tribes. PDF. Boom. You guys with me? Everyone has the place? Yeah, you guys see that bottom of 68? Yosef and the tribes? Yeah. Okay. According to the above, we can understand the verse. The children of Reuven and Gad possessed much cattle. Now, why are we focusing on this verse of all the verses in the Torah? The answer is because if you recall, when we first started this book, and it is a book, the book is right here. When we first started this book, it opened with this verse. David, you left.
Just so I can see you.
Okay, this way I can see you. All right, so the beginning of the book, this book, he quoted, this is the opening verse of this book. It's a narrative, a dramatic narrative, where at the end of Moses' life, at the end of the 40 years of wandering, two of the tribes come to Moses and they say, you know what? We're good right here. We don't actually want to go into Israel. We're in the, what's called the Transjordan, out of the east of the Jordan River, the east of Israel, right? I guess today that would be
the other side of the river.
Jordan, the other side of the river, right? The other side of the river. And they said to Moses, you know what? I think we're good. I know the plan is to go into Israel, but we have a lot of cattle. They seem to be enjoying themselves over here. What if we just stayed right here? How would that be okay? Moses says to them, I'm just going to recap quickly the story. Are you guys kidding? Are you Meshuggah? 40 years of wandering, because 40 years ago when we sent spies to check out the land, they came back with a negative report and no one wanted to go in. So God says, you don't want to go in, you're not going to go in. Now it's the end of the 40 years. Now now you're still saying we don't want to go in. Y'all don't know history. History's repeating itself. Y'all Meshuggah. You don't want, huh?
History always repeats
itself. You don't want to go in. And they're like, no, time out. They say, no, it's not we don't want to go in. Well, it's kind of like we don't want to go in. But it's not because we're afraid to go in.
We could come to visit.
They said, we will even fight. We'll fight. We'll be at the front lines going into Israel. It's not that we're afraid, but we just want to settle over here. So now let's jump inside. According to the above, we can understand the verse. The children of Reuven and Gad, those are the two tribes that wanted to settle in the Transjordan. They possessed much cattle. To explain, here we go. There is a well-known distinction between Joseph, and the rest of the tribes. Remember, there are 12 tribes. Joseph was unique. The man with the Technicolor dream coat, the dreamer, the boy who was favored by his father, the young man, the 17-year-old who was abducted by his own brothers, thrown into a pit filled with snakes and scorpions, sold as a slave to the Philistines, and ultimately who was sent as a slave down to Egypt, who then rose through the ranks against the laws to become viceroy. And he says there's a fundamental spiritual distinction between Yosef and the rest of his brothers, the rest of the tribes. And I explained, we did this last week, but we're going to do it again right here. The other tribes were shepherds, right? Yosef was a viceroy of Egypt. He was running the finance. He was moving and shaking. The other tribes, the other brothers, they were shepherds, meaning that they chose for themselves the sort of work that would not disturb them and that would enable them to be a, quote, chariot for divinity, even while engaged in earthly matters. In other words, they chose a vocation that would be very non-taxing physically. They chose a life of solitude, a life of nature, a life of just being at one, at peace with the world, the sheep, with God, very low distraction, very low. This is not the job on Wall Street. This is not running a hedge fund. This is not a high-powered job, on Madison Avenue. This is not running a studio in LA. This is literally a shepherd on a mountaintop, on a hilltop, making sure the sheep don't run away or get eaten by a wolf or whatever's eating sheep. I'm not sure. Okay, so that's what they did. They chose a life for themselves to be very low distraction. Yosef, on the other hand, was engaged in business matters. Yosef was the prototype for the modern, let's just call it the modern Jew, who's usually not a shepherd, right? I don't know. Most of us are not shepherds. Yosef, on the other hand, was engaged in business matters. There's a sages say in the verse, and he, Yosef, came to the house to do his work. He came to check the accounting records, even before he became viceroy, when he was working in in Potiphar's house. That was, remember Potiphar? Remember his wife? It's that whole thing? Yeah, distraction. So Potiphar, it says that he came home to the house to do his work. And the sage said, what kind of work was he doing? Accounting work. Even while a slave in Potiphar's house, what was he? He was the Jewish accountant. Unbelievable. So stereotypical. Next thing you tell me he was a lawyer and a doctor to boot, right? But he was a Jewish accountant. He was a CPA. He then became a king in Egypt, which made him extremely busy, etc. You can imagine, right? He became busy. Nevertheless, now we get into the Kabbalah. Look at this. Because he was a soul of Atzilut, that's the highest spiritual world from where souls can possibly come from. That's the highest rung, which is separate in its value from Biyah. In other words, it's not of the lower three realms. It's the higher realm, a realm of godliness. He did not have any impediment at all in his divine service. And even while immersed in the world, he remained simultaneously a chariot for divinity, as explained above, and the V'usartem Lachem. Let me explain what's going on here. And again, I talked about this last week. We're going to get to Israel in a moment. I talked about this last week, but it's important to reset just very, very briefly. Joseph's soul came from such a high level that even when he was thrown into the fray of material life, he remained above it and beyond it. Does that make sense? It's almost like, let me just give you an example. It's almost like sending your child to Spain, let's just say, as a random example, right? Okay. Right? So that's sending a child out of town. So if you're not sure if they're centered enough, grounded enough, might be a little shaky. But the more tethered they are, the more they know who they are, you can send them anywhere, right? And they'll be fine because they have a solid foundation. Joseph's soul was so firmly implanted in the world of Atzilut, the highest world, you could put him anywhere. You could put him in Pharaoh's palace. He was still who he was. You take someone who's not so sure, you throw them into a complicated place, they might lose their reality. They could totally question everything and fall off the deep end and fall out of the program. But you take someone who has such a strong foundation and you put him in Egypt, no matter what you put him in, he's going to remain strong.
You could take the boy out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the boy.
Or you could take the boy out of Atzilut.
Yeah.
You can't take that Atzilut out of the boy. No matter where he is, he's in a Neshama of Atzilut. He's good. Joseph is fine. By the way, the brothers, they felt that if they would have had that life, they would have abandoned their Judaism. If you would have put the other brothers into what's it called? Into that situation, they would have abandoned their faith, their values. The only way for them to maintain their spiritual propriety is for them to erect walls, the ghetto walls around themselves. The only way for us to remain Jewish, they maintained for themselves, was if we were shepherds. Because if we expose ourselves to the larger, to the big bad world, we're toast. I mean, you know already Chabad philosophy, right? You go everywhere. You remain proud of who you are. It's not a problem, right? When people were afraid to set, we spoke about this last week, afraid to send their kids on campus, the Rebbe was sending shluchim to Berkeley, to UCLA, to other campuses around the world, and saying, make a Chabad house over here. Chabad house, Berkeley, California. Are you crazy? You should create a Chabad on campus. You know what's going to happen to the couple, to the Rabbi and Rebbitzin? They're gonna cease to be religious in a moment, right? No, I have faith that they are that they're proud enough to be Jewish, that even in a different environment, they will shine. And indeed, it's proven true thousands and thousands and thousands of times over the last 6 decades. This has been proven to be the case. Yosef, this is living the Joseph life. The other brothers, they need to be shepherds to maintain their spiritual propriety. Joseph was able to go out there and do his thing even in Egypt. Why? Because he was from a higher level. The other tribes, conversely, this is paragraph number 2 on page 70. The other tribes, conversely, because their souls were rooted in the lower chariot Biyah, they were Bria, Yitzir, see the lower 3 worlds, were unable to be a chariot while at the same time immersed in the world. It was either or. Either they're going to be spiritual or they're going to be in the world, but they're not going to be able to be both at the same time. They were spiritually weaker. This is not a judgment. I'm just telling you what it says over here. It's not me. This is what it says in Kabbalah, that the other 11 tribes, the brothers, came from a lower level spiritually. And on that lower level, if they were exposed to the world, their spirituality would be confused. Let's continue. This is why the children of Reuven and the children of Gad, not Joseph, right? These were other 2 tribes. This is why the children of Reuven and Gad chose to be shepherds. Remember, they came to Moses and said, hey, let's stay here. There's a lot of good land for our cattle, and we're shepherds. Why were they shepherds? That's the point. Since they were rooted in the lower chariot and were on the level of servant. In other words, they weren't Yosef. We call Yosef Hatzadik. Joseph was a tzaddik, meaning no matter where you put him, no matter what situation, he was always spiritually on fire. He was always the righteous person, even in Egypt. But these other tribes, they felt like they were not on that level. They were shepherds. They were the lower chariot, Biyah, the 3 lower worlds, and they were on the level of servant. They weren't the level of Joseph. And this is why the children of Reuven possessed much cattle, meaning that their occupation was shepherding. That's how the Torah introduced us the narrative. The children of Reuven had much cattle, and so they requested to stay outside of Israel. This is also why, and here we get to the point, this is also why they chose the land on the other side of the Jordan, since it was spiritually appropriate for their divine service, as shall be explained. Let's jump into Eretz Yisrael. Here we go. Now we connect it with what I explained at the top of today's session. The land of Israel is called Eretz Yisrael, which connotes ratzo, yearning, running, desiring, as in the teaching, why is she, referring to the land, called Eretz Yisrael, because she ran to do the will of her master. In other words, the land itself wants something higher, wants something spiritual. The land itself is a spiritual land. It's a restless land. 72, page 72 at the top, referring to the yearning expressed in the verse, whom do I have in heaven? And when I am with you, I desire nothing on earth. I need to explain that. The Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, used to quote this verse from Psalms and used to say it in the context of a divine ecstasy or a spiritual experience. He used to say, I want nothing else. I don't want other than you, God. I don't want your Gan Eden, your paradise. I don't want your Olam Haba, your world to come. I don't want anything. I just want a relationship with you. I'm not looking for any spiritual reward. I'm not looking for any heaven or paradise or a spiritual light. I just want you, and that's it. That is what Eretz Yisrael is. Eretz Yisrael is a land in which people want the truth. It's the land itself is striving for truth. And when I say truth with a capital T, the ultimate truth, which is Hashem, the ultimate connection. This yearning, let's go back inside. 1, 2, 3, third line, last word in the line is this. This yearning stems from an awareness, understanding, and feeling of the exaltedness of the infinite light. This yearning occurs within the souls that are on the level of Oved Havaya, the level of the loyal servant, and the level of son, as explained above, this course entitled Titain Emet. Now, I need to explain this. we talked about throughout this series, we've talked about the servant persona. The servant is someone who inside is maybe not exactly on board or not sure about, spiritual stuff, but bottom line, gets the job done and serves God, others, does the right thing, does the mitzvah, even though it's a bit of a struggle inside. That is the Oved Elokim. Now we're talking about an Oved Havaya, a servant of Havaya. That's a higher level. That's like the level of son. The level of son, as opposed to servant, the son persona is someone who wants to do the work. The son is someone who is excited to help the father, to help the parent, as opposed to the servant who would rather be elsewhere. The servant is the person who doesn't want to do the work, but has to do the work because I got to do the work. Great. It's like, imagine like in the context of a job. You wake up in the morning. So there's two, I mean, there's more possibilities, but two examples. One is, yes, I'm excited to go to work today. I can't wait to do the work. That's the son persona. And then the servant persona is, I'd rather sleep in. But I got to go to work. I have a responsibility. That's the servant. The servant is the one who feels committed to do the work, but would rather be on vacation. The son is the one who loves to do it, would rather be in no other place than doing the work. You with me on this? You know the cliche, love what you do and you never work a day of your life. That's the son personality. The son personality is someone who, again, we use the example of son because, hopefully sons love their parents. But like the son persona is someone who doesn't just do it because they have to do it, because they love doing it. It's like, oh, mom, dad, absolutely. I'm all in. That's the son. The servant is like, can I get out of this? Like, I don't want to do this. I have to. Fine. Okay, fine, I'll do it. That's the servant. So in Israel is the modality of son. Not UN, O-N. Israel, he says, is Oved Havaya. Israel is the modality of, it wants, Eretz Yisrael, it wants to serve God. It wants to do the right thing. That's the energy of Israel. It's a higher enlightenment. It's I want to do it. I'm all in. I'm excited about it. Let's continue next paragraph 72. But the souls of Biyah, the lower level, which are the simple servants, are on the level of Oved Elokim, since their work is to refine the animal soul, which is also alluded to in the reference to much cattle. The level of souls of the seed of animal, and their work is fixing and refining the animal soul, etc. This is why they chose the land on the other side of the Jordan, since it is more spiritually appropriate for the Oved Elokim, as shall be explained presently. We're going to stop here because I think we have enough for a takeaway, and we're going to conclude next time we get together. We're going to conclude this discourse and wrap everything up. But for right now, we're going to pause here and let me just kind of bring this together. What he said today is the spiritual dimension of Eretz Yisrael, and this is why I led with what I led at the beginning of the class. The land of Israel is the epicenter of the universe spiritually. It's the core of the universe. It's a place that is maybe the right way to refer to it as spiritually transparent. When you're in Israel, or when you think about Israel, it's a space that bespeaks a higher truth. It's not an earthly land like every other land. It's a spiritual land. It's a land that the land itself even wants to do the will of the Creator. The land itself evokes this idea of, I want to show up for God. I want to pray. I want to do a mitzvah. It's a land and the people that live in the land, not everyone, but like there's a spiritual yearning, as opposed to other parts of the earth are not so spiritually excited. And in those parts of the earth, to do the right thing might be more of a struggle. It's like, I don't really want to. I have to. Are you sure? Is there a way out of this? No. Can I triple check? I have to do it. I'll do it. I don't want to do it. I'll do it, but I'm going kicking and screaming even as I do it. That's the level. That's the lower level. The higher level is I'm all in. I want to do it. Israel is I want to do it. Everywhere else, I'd rather not do it. Israel's persona is Joseph, right? I'm all in. The tzaddik, I'm all in. No matter where I am, I want to do it. The other tribes, they were on the lower level. And they said, we really don't want to do it. But we're going to do it anyway, but we'd rather not do it. But because of that, they felt that exposing themselves to Israel would be the wrong fit. Because Israel is a place where you have to be all in. but we're not all in. We have that tension inside. We have part of us that doesn't feel that this is who we are. We have, if we moved to Israel, we would have imposter syndrome. I'm not really a tzaddik. I'm not all in. I struggle with all this stuff. I don't know if I really want to do this. I'll do it because I guess it's the right thing to do, but I don't feel like all on board. Israel is all on board. I don't feel that I'm all on board. That's why the 2 tribes said to Moses, can we stay here?
What about the other 10 tribes that went in?
I don't know. I must do the same thing. Because they're also not chosen.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't, listen, this is
like.
spiritual explanation, right? We're fitting it into a narrative. It may not fit 100%, but it's more of like spiritual truths. And the reason why I say that is because it's all about the takeaway. At the end of the day, all this is for us to take away. And the message is I think the message is clear. And I think the message is more nuanced than either black or white. It's not a binary thing. There are some areas in life in which we're excited about doing whatever it is. Let's just call it the right thing. I'm just saying whatever the right thing is. Some areas we're all in on that. Like, yes, absolutely. Yes. There are other areas in which we're a little bit more tentative, or maybe a little bit dragging and screaming, right? To get the right thing done. The point is, wherever we are in the continuum, the important thing is to do the right thing, notwithstanding the resistance. So in the areas that we feel excited, the Israel areas, the Eretz Yisrael, great. If we feel like we're not there yet, also okay. But the main thing is to do it anyway, is to show up and to do what's right, and to do what's demanded of us, or what's expected of us, even if we're not ready for it. And I think that's a sign of spiritual maturity. We tell our kids, we tell ourselves all the time, even if you don't want to do it, you still have to do it. It's still the right thing to do, right? We told our kids when they were really young, kids came over for play dates, and then your kid doesn't want to share their toy. It's like, kid comes over, and then your kids say, no, it's my toy. And you're like, yeah, of course it's your house. All the toys are going to be yours. But little Johnny came over, and now you're going to share your toys. I know you don't want to, but share them anyway. And that's the message. That's the message to B'nai Reuven and B'nai Gad. And that's the message to all of us. In the areas that you're Joseph, the areas that you're Eretz Yisrael, the areas that you're lighting it up 100%, you're all in. The areas that you're excited about, like, oh wow, I can't wait to do that mitzvah. Great. Don't change that. That's great. If you're excited about doing the right thing, great. That's awesome. But when you're not excited, what are you doing then? The message is you're not excited. You're like, I don't belong in Israel. I don't feel it. I'm not excited.
Do it anyway.
Do it anyway. Do it anyway. It's okay. It's okay. So you're a shepherd. Maybe you need to create some space for yourself.
Don't feel like going to davening. Do it anyway.
Do it anyway. Right. I'm too lazy to go to shul today. All right. I'm still going to go. Why? Because I know it's the right thing. So create, like the shepherd, create that space. Create that space around yourself. Create that space. Put yourself in a context to be successful. Now, with this in mind, that's my charge for this week. So here's my charge. Identify for yourself one area. You can do more, but start with one area of Judaism, God, whatever you call spirituality, whatever you want to call it, one area in which you're excited about, and like lean into that. And find one area in which you're not so excited about, and exercise the idea of doing it anyway, and see how that feels. It also feels good. Also feels good to push ourselves a little bit beyond our comfort zones. It's a good thing to stretch ourselves a little bit. Okay, so that's the charge for this week. That's the homework for this week. But I have more homework. We'll do this very quickly. Okay, let's do this in 2 minutes. Pass this around, because as you know, we are in right now, Sfirat HaOmer. Okay, grab this, the counting of the Omer. So we're going to do a quick spiritual counting. Quick spiritual counting. Here we go. Let me pull this up. Oh, did I close this document? Sorry, online crew. I'll get back to you in a second. Spiritual surrender. Okay, pulled it up. Here we go. Share screen.
Why the brain exists.
To be able to push ourselves. Yeah, I agree. Kabbalah Cafe, counting the Omer, your guide to personal freedom. So counting the Omer, there's 49 days between Passover and Shavuot when we receive the Torah. And amazingly, and I love this about Judaism. Judaism is so cool. Sometimes, all the time, but sometimes specifically. So 49 days, each day is an opportunity to work on one of our character traits. And if you're wondering, well, what's the energy of today? I have a formula for you to look at. Now we're in the third week, which is Tiferet. So I'm going to first read a little bit about week 3 and then specifically about today. So during the third week, I'm just reading the sheet. During the third week of counting the Omer, we examine the emotional attribute of Tiferet, or compassion. Tiferet blends and harmonizes the free outpouring love of Chesed with the discipline of Gevura discussed last week. So Chesed is generosity. Gevura is more withholding. Tiferet is balancing, synthesizing those two together. Okay? Tiferet possesses this power by introducing a third dimension, the dimension of truth, which is neither love nor discipline, and therefore can integrate the two. That's a powerful thing. We don't have time to unpack it, but take this home. It's very powerful. Truth is access through selflessness. Rising above your ego and your predispositions enable you to realize truth. Truth gives you a clear and objective picture of yours and others' needs. This quality gives Tiferet its name, which means beauty. It blends the different colors of love and discipline, and this harmony makes it beautiful. So Chesed is polarized that way. Gevura is polarized that way. Tiferet is down the middle, and that's what beauty is. Beauty is harmony, right? When you hear in music, when you hear harmony, that's beautiful. When you see a painting that has different colors, balanced, it's beautiful. Okay, day 19. That's today. Today is the 19th day of the Omer. So every day is has 2 of the, because there's 7 energies, and each of the 7 energies has a subcategory of 7, right? 7 times 7 is 49 days. So today is Hod of Tiferet, which is humility in compassion. So let's go. If compassion is not to be condescending, right? Because Tiferet is also compassion. So if compassion is not to be condescending, it must include humility, which is Hod. So Hod of Tiferet, Hod is humility, Tiferet is compassion. So compassion must have humility. Hod is recognizing that my ability to be compassionate and giving does not make me better than the recipient. It is the acknowledgement and appreciation that by creating one who needs compassion, God gave me the gift of being able to bestow compassion. Thus, there is no place for haughtiness and compassion. In other words, very simply, the fact that I can help someone else is such a beautiful gift. I should never think in haughty terms of like, oh, I'm better than the person that needs, my wisdom, my counsel, my love, my whatever it is. It should be humble. Like I feel humbled that I have the opportunity to be able to share, to give, to be there for someone else. It should be humbling for us. That keeps it healthy. So here are questions to think about. Do I feel superior because I am compassionate? Do I look down at those that need my compassion? Am I humble and thankful to God for giving me the ability to have compassion for others? Exercise for the day. Express compassion in an anonymous fashion, not taking any personal credit. That's a beautiful exercise for the day. And then if you look at the second page, bonus info, not going to go through it, but bonus info, because you might be wondering, wait, so next week we'll have another opportunity, but what about in the interim? What about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbat? I got you covered. Homework for this week. I have all the days, the interim days between now and next Sunday, and you can read these. It doesn't have the whole spiel, but it has the, oh, nice. Oh, look at that. Literally, you have the app. Yeah, love that. You have the book, you have the app. Great. So you, and here on the sheet, okay. I hope you let him out on occasion. So here we have day 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and exercises for the day. So you can use that this week. I want to wish everybody Shavua Tov. I also do want to mention that despite what I just said, I will not be here next week. I was invited a few days ago to speak at the Shabbat in the Heights Shabbaton in Crown Heights, which opens in 770 Eastern Parkway this Friday night. So I will be in New York.
How many people you got going with you?
We didn't end up putting together a group here, but I got called in to be the guest speaker.
So you're not going to have a Zoom.
I think I'm going to be otherwise occupied next Sunday morning. So, unless something changes.
For you?
Do you want to? You're right here anyway. You might as well just shift it over and take it. Stay tuned. I'll clarify for sure. I don't think I'll be able to do a Zoom. But I want to wish everybody once again Happy Mother's Day. And it's great to see y'all. It's great to see some special guests. It's great to see folks that have come back from out of town. Some folks that have everybody. It's great to see everybody. Thank you all for being here. Happy Mother's Day. Shavua Tov. Enjoy your Sunday. And God bless everyone. Let us say amen.
Amen.
Frank, great to see you. Matt, great to see you. Ray and Jeff and Diane and Fran and Deborah. And Lisa and Merle. I think we got everybody in. Good to see you guys. Shavua Tov.